The Final Four meets today for our semifinal match next on Quiz Kids.
It's the Bay Area Quiz Kids. Brought to you by the San Mateo Credit Union. And now, the best host on the West Coast, Brad Friedman.
Hi, everybody. You are in for a treat today as the top four teams for our season meet today to find that final two for next week's championship round. Let's meet the first two teams right now. First, the Bellarmine Bells and the Valley Christian Warriors. Gentlemen, you've played so well this season. You've earned your spot here in our semifinals. Good luck to both teams. Here's your first toss-up question. The Madeira and Rio Negro are tributaries of the second longest river in the world. Jarek.
The Amazon.
That is correct. For 25 points, the mouth of the Amazon is in which country, whose cities include Santarém and Manaus?
Brazil.
Right, and for 50 points, the Amazon also goes by its city of Iquitos in what country?
Peru.
Peru.
That is right for 50 points. Next toss-up. This nation's authors include Alice Munro, Robertson, Bianchi.
Canada.
That is right for 25 points. French-Canadian author Yann Martel wrote which book about an Indian boy who survives for almost a year adrift in the Pacific with only a tiger for company?
Life of Pi. Life of Pi.
That is right. And for 50 points, which other Canadian author wrote Alias Grace and the Blind Assassin?
Atwood.
Yeah.
Atwood.
Of course, 50 points. Here's your next toss-up. Molecules of this compound are found in two photosystems, each of which has a different variety of this substance. Bianchi.
Chlorophyll.
Correct. For 25 points, the two types of chlorophylls are named P680 and P700 for what property of the light that they absorb?
Wavelength.
Right, and for 50 points, the photosystems containing chlorophyll are found in what membrane-bound structures inside chloroplasts?
Organa. Okay. Stomata.
No thylakoids. Oh my God, you know nothing. We are at 125 to nothing, to 0, only for a temporary moment. Let's stop and say hi to the teams. The Bellarmine Bells. Jarek, you're a senior. I'm going to ask every one of you today to give some gratitude, thanks to whoever you'd like. You're seniors, you're about to go off into the world. Who would you like to thank, Jarek?
I'd like to thank, on behalf of all three of us, I'd like to thank our parents, without whom we would not be here, both literally and figuratively, especially my parents. I think they're the best of the three of us.
Oh.
So your parents literally brought forth Bianchi and Namit? I'm confused. Well, they figuratively brought forth Bianchi and Namit. I'm going to move on to Bianchi because he's got to thank
Good
someone
idea.
too.
I would beg to differ, but I would like to thank the teachers at Bellarmine, especially Dr. Sullivan, who is probably watching this program, and TA, who is probably also watching this program.
Very nice. Thank you, the teachers. And Namit, who would you like to thank?
We'd like to thank our coaches and our team. We have Mr. Fleetus and Mr. Flowers, and also our other senior friends who aren't here today.
Great. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Let's move over to Valley Christian High and give Dilip, Omid, and Ashish the same chance to thank somebody or some people for all their success.
So I'd like to thank my family, first of all, for helping me prep for Quiz Kids and other Quiz Bowl tournaments. They helped me read questions and the like.
Thank you, Dilip. Omid?
I'd like to thank Valley Christian High School for giving me a lot of opportunities in various mediums and progressing me as a person.
Very nice. Ashish?
I'd like to thank the show, Quiz Kids, for having us the ability to be on the show. I mean, for me, it's been a great opportunity, and for my teammates, I'm pretty sure the same thing goes for them as well.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's go back to the game. We want to get Valley Christian on the board with our next toss-up. He won the battles of Friedland, Jena, and Austerlitz. Jarek.
Napoleon.
That's right, for 25 points. Which nephew of Napoleon became French president in 1848, then emperor after an 1851 coup?
Napoleon III.
Napoleon III.
Right, for 50 points. Napoleon III ruled France's Second Empire. That regime was followed by which other government that lasted until 1940?
Third Republic.
That's right, for 50 points. Next toss-up. He won the 1904 Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine. Which Russian is most famous for conditioning? Yes, Jarek.
Pavlov.
A salivation reflex in dogs for the home audience that would like to hear the whole question once in a while. Yes, it was Pavlov. For 25 points, which Swiss psychologist theorized 4 stages of childhood development beginning with sensorimotor stage?
Piaget. Piaget.
That is right. For 50 points, an 8-stage theory of psychosocial development was posited by which author of Childhood and Society and Young Man Luther?
Erickson.
That is right for 50 points. Next toss-up. This Carthaginian general won a stunning victory over the Romans at the Battle of Cannae, Omid.
Hannibal.
That is right. For 25 points, in 218 BC, Hannibal daringly crossed the Alps with these animals trained for war.
Elephants.
And for 50 points, the Second Punic War was finally ended after Hannibal lost to this Roman general at the Battle of Zama.
Scipio Africanus.
You got 50 points. Here's your next toss-up. Since 2009, the Willis Tower has been the official name... Omid?
Sears Tower.
That is right. For 25 points, in the book of Genesis, construction stopped when which structure's builders began speaking different languages?
Tower of Babel.
Correct. For 50 points. Which mathematical puzzle involves moving disks such that no larger disk may be placed on top of a smaller disk?
Towers of Hanoi.
You got 50 points. Catching up. Next toss-up. In Greek mythology, Oceanus and Hyperion were among which giants? Omid.
Titans.
Right, overthrown by the Olympians. For 25 points, which group was made up of Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos, who spun, measured, and cut the thread of life?
Fates.
Yes. Don't get too excited, Omid. I don't want you to get hurt. Just calm down. For 50 points, Eudora and Ambrosia were among which sisters of the Pleiades who brought rain? Omid.
Muses.
The Hyades, of course. Next toss-up. Viewing a scene through a lens may result in white lines developing a prismatic fringe. What do we call that form of aberration? Janchi.
Polarization.
No. You can discuss that for a few seconds and give me the correct answer to steal.
Chaos.
The 6 of you don't know one thing. That's a moment. Chromatic aberration. Chromatic aberration. Gentlemen, your next toss-up. What do we call the semi-annual events where the length of day matches the length of night? Janchi.
Equinox.
Correct. For 25 points, in the northern hemisphere, the vernal equinox occurs on the first day of what season?
Spring. Spring.
Yes. For 50 points, also in the northern hemisphere, which equinox occurs on the first day of fall?
Autumnal. Autumnal.
The autumnal equinox. You got 50 points. Next toss-up. He squabbled with his advisors, Cardinal Wolsey and Thomas More. Jarek.
Henry VIII.
Yes, for 25 points, Henry VIII's daughter by Anne Boleyn was which virgin queen who bested the Spanish Armada?
Elizabeth the First.
There you go. For 50 points, which successor of Henry VIII died in 1553 while still a teenager?
Edward VI.
That's what I thought. Edward VI.
You got 50 points. And you have quite a lead, 325 to Valley Christian's 125. One of these teams is going to go into our top 2 teams. We'll find out next after this message. We are back. Let's give a big hand to the coaches who have guided their teams through this terrific season. First from Bellarmine, Mr. Chris Fleetus. And from Valley Christian, Chitra Ascari. Thank you both so much. All right, Valley Christian, you need 5 correct answers to stay in this game. The questions are worth 40 points each, and here are your 3 categories for the day. Cabinet secretaries, painters, and bears. Which category would you like?
We'll take bears.
Bears. Name these things having to do with bears. Okay? It's the city whose NFL team is the Bears.
Chicago.
That's right. It's the constellation whose name means Great Bear.
Ursa Major.
Correct. It's the opposite of a bear market.
Flea market.
No, it's a bull market. It's the stock market. Bullish, bulls and bears. He created Baloo the bear in the Jungle Book.
Kipling.
That is correct. He's the mascot who seeks to prevent forest fires.
Smokey.
That is correct. A. Milne wrote about this bear?
Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, you're sounding like Eeyore here. One more question. This Asian carnivore's diet is almost exclusively bamboo.
Panda.
That's correct. Yes, 365. Bellarmine, you need 2 answers to get into the top 2. Would you like cabinet secretaries or painters?
Okay. Let's go with painters.
Painters. And to just give you a slight disadvantage, I'm going to read all these questions in Hebrew. Ready?
Okay. Except the painting titles. That's all we need in English.
What?
Except the painting titles. That's all
The
we need in
painting
English.
titles, right, all right. Actually, all I'm going to do is give you the painting titles. Nice shot, Jarek. And you tell me the painter who wrote them. The painter who painted them. Okay? Jarek, ready? Which American artist painted Arrangement in Gray and Black #1, The Artist's Mother?
Whistler.
That's right. Which, and this is for the win, which artist painted New York Movie and Nighthawks?
Hopper.
You have just gone into our final 2 teams. Congratulations. Valley Christian, you are a force to be reckoned with. We really loved having you with us this season. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Let's find out who will join them when we come back from these messages. We are back, and things are about to get a little confusing. Let's meet the next 2 teams. Over here we have Captain Karthik and the Homestead Mustangs. And over here we have Captain Karthik and the Mission San Jose Warriors. Those sound like the titles to 2 Elton John albums, don't they? Gentlemen, welcome. And good luck, Mr. Friedman, on your emceeing here. Here's your first toss-up question. The historian Suetonius wrote that he was stabbed 23 times. Yes, Karthik.
Julius Caesar.
That is right. For 25 points, Caesar's victory at Alesia completed his conquest of which ancient region that includes most of present-day France?
Gaul.
Right, and for 50 points, Caesar ignited a civil war when he brought one of his legions to the Italian side of which river that marked the boundary of Gaul? Karthik.
The Black River.
The Rubicon.
Oh.
Here's your next toss-up. Christopher Columbus named them after the legendary Saint Ursula. The American portion of what island chain was purchased from Denmark in 1916? Karthik?
Samoa.
No. You can steal Homestead, talk it over.
Virgin Islands. Yeah, go for it.
All right, Virgin Islands.
That is right. For 25 points, the Virgin Islands belong to which arc of Lesser Islands? Jamaica is part of its greater arc.
Antilles.
Antilles.
That is right. And for 50 points, the capital of the U.S. Virgin Islands, Charlotte Amalie, is on which island named for a saint?
Saint
Bartholomew.
Saint John. I don't know.
St. John, sure.
Saint John.
St. Thomas.
Okay.
Next toss-up. Because of a mistranslation, there are horns on this statue's head. Yes, Karthik.
Moses.
That is right. Instead of rays of light. For 25 points, which abolitionist and conductor on the Underground Railroad was known as Moses for her skill at helping others out of slavery?
Harriet Tubman.
Correct. And for 50 points, which Cordoban philosopher wrote the Guide for the Perplexed?
What? Any idea?
Frederick Douglass. I don't know.
Sure.
Try it. Frederick Douglass.
No, it was Moses Maimonides.
Okay.
Moses Maimonides.
Guy.
50 to 25. Let's take a moment and say hi to our team members. William. We have asked all the teams to give thanks to some people or groups that have helped them out with Quiz Kids or with school or with life. Who would you like to thank?
So I want to thank my dad and my grandma for really being enthusiastic and supporting me, and also our Quiz Bowl Club advisor, Mr. Wilson, because this wouldn't be possible without him.
That's very nice. Karthik.
Okay, rather like William, I'd like to thank my parents for supporting me in, well, basically everything I do, my club advisor and my teammates, because I wouldn't be here without them.
That and the drone you have flying over everyone's house.
I am never going to live that
You're
down.
never going to live it down, no. Brandon, who would you like to thank?
I would like to thank my parents. They've been super supportive, like not just here, but throughout my life. I'd like to thank our president of our club, Jessica Chen, who's a junior right now and was unfortunately too busy to come here. And I'd also like to thank my favorite game show host, which is, of course, Alex Trebek. But you're number 2, so I'd like to thank you, too.
I don't know how to kick him off this game without seeming rude. Thank you, sort of, Brandon.
You're welcome, sort of.
Yeah, a noob. Who would you like to thank?
So on behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank our parents who have motivated us and inspired us and helped us study and brought us to where we are today.
Very nice. Karthik?
Yeah, I would like to thank Mission San Jose High School for giving us this opportunity to compete here. And we would also like to thank Dr. Brucker for being here and helping us prepare for the competition.
Very nice. And Kelvin?
I'd like to thank Quiz Kids for this opportunity this great opportunity. I'd like to thank my teammates as well and our club advisor, Mr. Geschke, who's...
Very nice. Okay, gentlemen, let's get back to the game with your next toss-up question. Indicators such as phenol red are used when performing it. Yes, Kelvin.
Titration.
That's right. For 25 points, titration is often used to analyze what types of solutions that may consist of a weak acid and its conjugate base.
Buffer.
Right, and for 50 points, often used in titration experiments is what thin glass tube with volumetric markings that allows individual drops to be added to the solution.
Burette.
And you got 50 points. You've taken the lead. Next toss-up. Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam are the major nations on this Asian peninsula that projects into the South China Sea. What is the peninsula formerly covered by French... Yes, Brandon?
The Mekong?
No, formerly covered by French colonies called.
French Indochina.
Karthik?
Indochina.
That is right. For 25 points, the 1964 congressional resolution that escalated the Vietnam War is named for which arm of the South China Sea?
Gulf of Tonkin.
That is correct. And for 50 points, to the southwest of Indochina is which other gulf named for the country bordering Malaysia and Burma?
Thailand.
You got 50 points. Next toss-up. These devices work by supplying energy to a gain medium, such as a combination of helium and neon. What are these sources? Yes, Karthik.
Lasers.
That is right. For 25 points, what form of information communication transmits data as laser pulses through long, thin media?
Fiber optic.
Okay, sure.
Fiber optic communication.
Correct. And for 50 points, what devices that produce coherent microwave beams rather than visible light were first built in 1954, a few years before the first laser?
I know this. Maser.
You got 50 points. Next toss-up. This king sent his wife Edith to a nunnery during a dispute with Edith's father Godwin. Who was this king known as the Confessor? Karthik.
Edward.
Right, for 25 points. This first Norman king of England claimed that Edward promised him the throne. Who won the Battle of Hastings and was crowned in 1066?
William the Conqueror.
That is right. And for 50 points, Edward was part of which royal house that traced descent to Alfred the Great and originated from a Saxon kingdom in southwest England?
I know what they said that. Tudor, maybe?
Karthik.
Yeah, sure. Tudor?
No, it was the House of Wessex.
Oh.
Next toss-up. At Sacramento, the Sacramento River joins what other river? Karthik.
San Joaquin.
No, you can steal.
The American River, maybe?
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
The American River?
That is right. For 25 points, what is the name of the bay in which the Sacramento and San Joaquin merge?
The bay.
No idea.
I'm lost.
Karthik.
No answer.
It's Sisson Bay. Sisson Bay.
Never heard of that.
Next toss-up. What's the play in which Laura loves her collection of animals? Kelvin.
The Glass Menagerie.
Right. For 25 points, which author of A Streetcar Named Desire wrote The Glass Menagerie?
Tennessee Williams.
That is correct. And for 50 points, the Wingfields identify Jim O'Connor, who is seemingly a suitor for Laura, with what two-word term?
White Knight.
No, he is the gentleman caller. Next toss-up. Strontium-90 has a half-life of 28.1 years. By its Greek letter name, what sort of particle does it emit as this radioisotope breaks down? Karthik.
Beta.
That is correct. For 25 points, beta particles are high-speed, high-energy forms of which atomic particles?
Electrons.
Correct. And for 50 points, an alpha particle is identical to the nucleus of what light atom?
Helium.
You got 50 points. That is the end of the round. 225 for Mission San Jose, 110 for Homestead. We'll be right back to determine the winner. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's give a big hand to the coaches for both our teams. First, from Homestead, Mr. Jason Scott. And from Mission San Jose, Dr. Charlie Brucker. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for all your hard work. All right, Homestead, you are behind, and I believe that started by coincidence when Brandon determined that he was on Team Trebek. Just saying. All right, so you get your chance to move ahead. We have 3 categories. The point value of each correct answer is 30 points, and you need 4 correct answers to stay in the game. This week's categories are the Earth, Spain, and elections.
We are going to do elections.
Elections, all right. Given his party and election year, name the presidential winner. This Democrat was first elected in 1992.
Bill Clinton.
That is right. This Republican was elected in 1904.
That's Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt.
Right. This Republican was elected in 1860.
Lincoln.
Yeah.
Lincoln.
That is right. This Republican was elected this Democrat was elected in 1948.
That's Truman. Right. Truman.
Right. This Republican was elected in 1928.
That is Hoover. Yeah. Hoover.
Correct. This Democrat was elected in 1828.
That's Jackson. Yeah. Jackson.
You got it. And the last one, a Democrat who was elected in 1960.
That would be Kennedy. Kennedy.
You got them all for 320. Congratulations. That means, Mission San Jose, that you have to get 4 correct answers, okay? The Earth or Spain?
The Earth.
The Earth. All right. These are all things having to do with the Earth. It's the layer between Earth's crust and outer core.
Mantle. Mantle.
That is right. It's the month in which Earth Day occurs.
April. April.
That is right. She was the Greek goddess of the earth.
Gaia.
Gaia is correct. If you get this right, you'll be part of our final 2 and go into our championships. He was the composer of the Song of the Earth. Karthik.
Stravinsky.
No, it was Gustav Mahler. Oh. It's the rare earth element with symbol La.
Lanthanum.
You're in our final 2. Congratulations. Homestead, you're a great team. You played so well this season. Thank you. We'll see you next week. We'll see you next week for the final championship of Quiz Kids.